of goats. We'd had dirt and rocks frequently cascade into our ride from hugging the cliff too tightly, along with waterfalls spitting at us and animals pausing to peer curiously out of their burrows at us, as if wondering what we were doing up here. I was starting to wonder that myself. I also was wondering which kind of dragon this was, as these mountains were home to two very different varieties. The way it had been explained to me was that it was similar to the Weir situation on Earth. Some wolves were merely wolves, just animals and nothing more, and some were Weirs, shapeshifters of the human type who could change in an instant. Dragons had the same situation, with the animal type carnivorous, wildly destructive, and casually vicious, and the human type all of that, plus intelligent, calculating, and cruel. I wondered which this one was, and if it mattered, because the animal type might well decide to eat us, but the human type might do worse. Make that probably would do worse, I thought, noticing the set of my roommate's shoulders in the seat in front of me. Claire was actually my ex-roommate, since I'd recently gotten married and moved out, but I'd lived with her long enough to know that she didn't scare easily. In fact, she rarely scared at all, facing down things that would make me blanch, and I'd been hunting monsters for 500 years. Yet here we were, with her looking as brittle as I'd ever seen her, with her narrow shoulders clenched and her abundant mop of red curls vibrating with some kind of emotion I couldn't read. But it wasn't happy, so neither was I. I didn't want to be dragon food. Louis-Cesare, the aforementioned husband, obviously didn't either, as he had his hand on his rapier. That was usually pretty intimidating, considering what he could do with it. As a 400-year-old master vamp, he'd had plenty of time to practice. Yet I didn't think it was going to help us much right now. But that might, I thought, when Claire suddenly had enough and erupted from her skin, changing in the blink of an eye into a pewter-colored dragon with twisted crystal horns and a riotous lavender mane down her back. She had changed while leaping off of our small wagon, leaving us rocking precariously in her wake, and immediately plowed into the giant red creature who'd been buzzing us. They went boiling off into the sky, wings flapping, throats screeching, and giant maws agape, and I stood up reflexively, as if I was going to do something, and then just stayed there, feeling like a fool and completely outclassed, and unsure who to be more terrified for, her or us. "She'll be all right," Louis-Cesare said, and strangely he sounded sure. I looked over at my hubby to see the wind blowing strands of his auburn hair around as he watched the battling duo. "How do you know?" The blue eyes narrowed on the latest impossible scene. "Look closer. There is no blood spurting, and both sets of claws are sheathed." I squinted, but the sun was behind the battling duo. "They're playing?" "Perhaps. Oh, perhaps it is some strange ritualistic greeting." He looked as frustrated as I felt. "I am out of my depths here." I sat back down. That made two of us. And while the sight on the horizon would be one that I'd carry for years, just from the sheer breathtaking awe of it, right now I had other concerns, namely my sister Dorina, who had been missing for weeks. That was why we were here, trying to get her back. But so far, we'd only gotten maybe 50 miles from the portal where we'd come in, and half of that uphill, and the rest through a less than forgiving countryside where the trees got grabby, and the Fae got nasty, and even a spring of water where we'd stopped to fill our canteens had it out for us. The water hadn't been poisonous, but it had made the posse we'd assembled, most of whom were master-level vampires, drunk off their asses. Probably courtesy of the herbs that grew by the water source and seemed to have leached something into it, but the delay had cost us days. As a result, we were almost 2 weeks into the supposed rescue attempt and no closer to finding Dorina than when we'd started. Only for Claire to finally locate a few of her scaly relatives and be informed that the posse wasn't wanted.